2 in the morning. The Arabian Sea is black wind cutting across a quiet deck radar screens glowing in a dim combat information center. A $2.5 billion American destroyer turns south away from the Iranian coastline. No damage, no casualties, no malfunction. The crew is ready. The ship is not. Every vertical launch cell is empty. 96 tubes that define the ship's combat power silent. The final Tomahawk left the rails 12 hours earlier, striking an IRGC command node deep in the Zagros Mountains. The missile worked. The target collapsed. But success created the withdrawal. With no reload capability at sea, the destroyer now begins a 1,000-mile journey away from the fight. Modern naval warfare built on precision strike dominance, suddenly constrained by something far more mundane: logistics. The image captures a deeper transformation. For decades, American naval doctrine assumed overwhelming missile capacity would end conflicts quickly. The Arleigh Burke-class destroyer became the embodiment of that belief. 96 Mark 41 vertical launch cells, a mix of Tomahawk land attack missiles, SM-6 interceptors, anti-submarine rockets, and air defense weapons. The ship could strike land targets, defend carrier groups, and control airspace simultaneously. It was designed as a floating arsenal, a self-contained precision strike platform capable of dominating entire theaters. But every missile fired reduces that dominance. Every launch cell goes dark. And unlike fuel or food missiles, cannot be transferred easily at sea. The destroyer's withdrawal is not a tactical retreat. It is a mechanical inevitability. Once the last missile leaves the ship, it becomes a sensor platform without teeth. It can track threats. It can warn allies. It can maneuver. But it cannot strike. And in a high-intensity conflict, that is the difference between presence and absence. During the opening phase of Operation Epic Fury, the pace accelerated beyond peacetime assumptions. Cruise missiles launched in waves, command bunkers, radar networks, missile depots, drone facilities, air bases, targets across hundreds of miles. Destroyers and submarines coordinated strikes to dismantle layered defenses before aircraft entered contested airspace. The strategy worked. Precision firepower dismantled critical nodes within days. But success created a new timeline. Magazines emptied faster than planners expected. The mathematics is unforgiving. A destroyer carrying 96 missiles may dedicate dozens to air defense, reserving the rest for strike operations. In sustained combat tempo, those offensive missiles disappear quickly. Several nights of coordinated launches. Multiple time-sensitive targets. Defensive intercepts. Within days, the inventory shrinks. Commanders must decide: hold missiles for defense or expend them for strategic strikes. Either choice accelerates depletion. This creates a paradox. The more effective the ship, the faster it exits the battlefield. High precision increases launch tempo. Launch tempo empties magazines. Empty magazines force withdrawal. The ship's greatest strength becomes a clock. Strategically, the withdrawal matters more than the strike. A destroyer leaving station creates a gap in missile defense coverage. Carrier groups lose layered protection. Maritime choke points become thinner. Surveillance remains, but deterrence weakens. Adversaries watch closely. Radar emissions change. Launch signatures disappear. The absence becomes visible. Historically, naval warfare revolved around endurance fuel, ammunition, crew fatigue. Modern precision warfare shifts endurance to magazine depth. Not how far a ship can sail, but how long it can fire. The destroyer turning south symbolizes this shift. The battle is no longer limited by detection or targeting. It is limited by inventory. The silence inside those empty cells becomes strategic. Each empty tube represents a strike that cannot be made, a missile that cannot intercept, a target that remains intact. The destroyer's departure is not dramatic. No explosions, no pursuit. Just a quiet turn into darkness. But that turn marks the beginning of a larger question in a war defined by precision weapons. What happens when the weapons run out faster than they can be replaced? The answer begins with physics. Why can't the ship simply reload at sea? Why must it travel thousands of miles to a fixed crane? Why does the most advanced Navy in the world still depend on a concrete pier? Those questions reshape the story, because the destroyer did not leave due to enemy action. It left because modern naval warfare still depends on gravity motion and the limits of engineering. And in that moment, quiet, unseen operational, the balance between dominance and vulnerability becomes visible. The ship is intact, the crew is ready, the sensors are active, but the war has moved beyond them. The empty cells decide everything. The limitation begins with a steel box. The Mark 41 Vertical Launching System. The backbone of American surface warfare is deceptively simple rows of square cells embedded deep inside the hull, each designed to hold a sealed missile canister. On paper, it is modular, efficient, and versatile. In practice, it is also unforgiving. Each cell is only inches wider than the missile container itself. A Tomahawk cruise missile inside its canister stretches more than 20 feet long and weighs roughly 3,500 pounds. That mass must be lowered vertically, perfectly aligned, and guided into a narrow steel sleeve. On land, the process is routine. A shore-based crane lifts the canister. Gravity pulls straight down. The pier does not move. The alignment remains constant. The missile slides in. At sea, nothing stays still. A destroyer underway moves in 6 acts simultaneously. Pitch lifts the bow and drops it again. Roll tilts the hull side to side. Heave raises the entire ship with the swell. Yaw twists the vessel along its axis. Surge pushes forward and back. Sway shifts left and right. These motions occur constantly, even in moderate sea states. When a crane suspends a heavy canister from a cable, the missile becomes a pendulum. The ship rolls left, the suspended load swings right. The deck rises, the load lags behind. Each correction creates a larger oscillation. Within seconds, the canister begins to swing unpredictably. That swing becomes dangerous. The clearance between canister and cell wall is minimal. A slight angular impact can cause steel-on-steel contact. Inside the canister sits rocket propellant and a high-explosive warhead. The risk is unacceptable. One uncontrolled collision could damage the missile trigger propellant instability or endanger the crew. Engineers studied the physics repeatedly. Even moderate seas produced oscillations exceeding safe tolerances. The math did not change. Early destroyers attempted a compromise. The first Arleigh Burke variants carried strike-down cranes designed to reload certain munitions at sea. These systems occupied valuable space, each crane replacing several missile cells. The trade reduced overall capacity. Worse, the cranes struggled with full-weight Tomahawk canisters. They were designed for lighter loads and calmer conditions. Operational testing showed limited reliability. Calm seas were rare. High-intensity combat rarely waits for calm water. By the late 1990s, planners made a decision that shaped decades of naval warfare. Remove the cranes. Add more missile cells. Increase firepower. Except that reloading would occur only in port. The assumption seemed logical. Future conflicts would be short. Precision strikes would be limited. 96 missiles would be enough. The Navy chose capacity over endurance. For years, the choice appeared correct. Cruise missile campaigns were brief. Ships returned to port between operations. Logistics remained manageable. But the rise of long-range precision warfare changed expectations. Adversaries dispersed targets. Air defenses grew denser. Command nodes moved underground. More missiles were required to achieve the same effect. Strike packages expanded. Launch counts increased. Physics remained unchanged. Reloading still required stability. stability still required land. The absence of at-sea reload capability became a hidden constraint. Destroyers could fire rapidly, but could not sustain operations without withdrawal. The problem extends beyond Tomahawks. Air defense interceptors share the same cells. SM-2 and SM-6 missiles defend against aircraft drones and ballistic threats. Every defensive launch also empties a cell. A ship engaged in simultaneous strike and defense burns inventory from both ends. Offensive missions reduce strike capacity. Defensive missions reduce survivability. The dual-role nature of the VLS accelerates depletion. This is the paradox of modular launch systems. Flexibility increases capability but concentrates risk. All missile types share the same inventory space. Once empty, the ship loses multiple functions simultaneously. The destroyer does not merely lose strike power. It loses layered defense. It loses deterrence. Engineers tried alternative solutions: stabilized cranes, motion-compensated cables, transfer rigs between ships. Each concept confronted the same physics. A suspended load reacts slower than the deck beneath it. That delay creates oscillation. Oscillation creates impact risk. Impact risk ends the attempt. For decades, the conclusion remained consistent. At-sea vertical launch reload was operationally impractical. The Navy built doctrine around that limitation. Ships would rotate. Strike groups would overlap coverage. Logistics hubs would sustain the cycle. Then came sustained high-intensity operations. Missiles left launch tubes faster than rotation schedules could handle. Withdrawal windows widened. Coverage thinned. The limitation moved from theoretical to operational. The destroyer turning south was not just empty. It was evidence. Evidence that physics, not strategy, had set the boundary of modern naval warfare. A navy capable of striking across continents still depended on a stationary crane bolted to concrete. And as missile expenditure increased, that dependence began to shape the battlefield itself. Operation Epic Fury transformed a logistical constraint into a strategic reality. The opening phase began before dawn, coordinated across multiple domains. Submarines launched first Tomahawks, skimming low over water before climbing inland. Destroyers followed, firing in staggered salvos to saturate radar coverage. Targets stretched across Iranian territory. Command centers, missile depots, drone facilities, airfields, naval infrastructure. Precision strikes landed within minutes of each other, overwhelming defenses through timing rather than sheer volume. The effect was immediate. Early warning networks fractured. Communications nodes fell silent. Air defense coordination degraded. The opening hours established dominance without large-scale aircraft penetration. But dominance required repetition. Intelligence updates generated new targets. Mobile launchers relocated. Hardened facilities required multiple hits. Defensive missiles intercepted incoming threats. Each engagement consumed inventory. Destroyers shifted from deliberate strike planning to rapid response launches. Combat tempo accelerated. Within days, missile counts dropped sharply. Reports indicated hundreds of cruise missiles launched in the first weeks. The volume exceeded expectations. The campaign prioritized speed, neutralizing threats before adversaries adapted. Strategically, the approach mirrored modern doctrine: strike deep, disrupt coordination, maintain pressure. Operationally, it created a burn rate that planners rarely confronted in peacetime exercises. Ships designed for endurance suddenly faced depletion cycles measured in days. This rapid consumption reshaped fleet positioning. Destroyers rotated off station one by one. Replacement ships moved forward. The cycle created invisible seams across the operational map. Each departing vessel reduced coverage. Commanders adjusted formations to compensate. Carrier groups tightened defensive rings. Submarines extended patrol durations. Air assets filled temporary gaps. The system adapted, but not perfectly. The problem intensified when offensive and defensive missions overlapped. Iranian missile launches triggered intercepts. Drones forced additional engagements. Surface threats required readiness. Each defensive shot removed another missile from the same shared inventory. A destroyer tasked with both strike and defense lost capability twice as fast. The VLS design amplified the effect. Strike operations emptied cells. Air defense emptied the rest. Strategically, this created a new calculus. Should ships conserve interceptors? Should strike missions be limited? Should commanders accept risk in one domain to preserve capacity in another? These decisions unfolded in real time. No option solved the underlying issue. Every choice accelerated depletion somewhere else. As destroyers withdrew, transit time became the next constraint. Ships moved toward ports capable of handling VLS reloads. Bahrain handled some traffic, but capacity filled quickly. Piers saturated. Cranes operated continuously. Vessels queued offshore, awaiting access. When regional ports filled, ships diverted farther. Diego Garcia Mediterranean facilities, distant logistics hubs. Each diversion added days. The arithmetic became stark. A destroyer leaving the fight required roughly a week to transit, several days to reload, and another week to return. 3 weeks outside the operational area. During high-tempo operations, that timeline created rolling shortages. At any given moment, portions of the fleet were absent. Presence diminished even as strike demand increased. Adversaries recognized patterns. Surveillance assets tracked departures. Radar signatures shifted. Launch rates dropped temporarily. These windows, small but measurable, offered opportunities. Mobility increased. Air defense units repositioned. Naval forces probed edges of coverage. Even limited gaps affected operational confidence. This dynamic echoed previous conflicts. In the Red Sea, missile defense destroyers depleted interceptors during sustained drone attacks. Ships withdrew to reload. Replacement coverage lagged. Attacks intensified during transitions. The pattern repeated inventory depletion, creating vulnerability. Operation Epic Fury magnified the scale. The number of missiles fired exceeded historical campaigns. Precision strike dominance remained intact. Targets were hit, infrastructure degraded, command networks disrupted. But the cost emerged in time, not accuracy. Each launch shortened operational endurance. Strategically, the campaign revealed a shift in warfare. Victory no longer depended solely on striking power. It depended on sustaining that power. The ability to reload, rotate, and remain present became as critical as the missiles themselves. A destroyer's effectiveness now measured not only by what it fired, but by how quickly it could fire again. The paradox deepened. The Navy demonstrated unmatched strike capacity. Yet that very success created temporary absences. Firepower achieved objectives, but thinned presence. The battlefield expanded beyond geography into logistics timelines. The destroyer that turned south was not alone. Others followed. Each departure quiet, procedural, necessary. Together they formed a pattern, one that revealed modern naval warfare's hidden vulnerability. The faster precision weapons succeed, the faster magazines empty. And once empty, even the most advanced fleet must step back, wait, and reload, while the war continues without it. The gaps did not appear as dramatic collapses. They emerged quietly, radar coverage thinning at the edges, missile defense rings stretching wider, strike intervals lengthening. A destroyer leaves. Another is still days away. The map still looks full, but the density changes. In modern naval warfare, density is deterrence. The more launch platforms present, the harder it becomes for an adversary to predict coverage. Remove even one and uncertainty shrinks. Remove several and patterns emerge. These presence gaps reshape strategy. A carrier strike group depends on layered defense, outer surveillance, mid-range interceptors, inner point defense systems. Destroyers carrying long-range missiles form the backbone of that outer layer. When one rotates out, the protective envelope compresses. Commanders reposition remaining ships to compensate. But geometry has limits. A smaller ring covers less space. Reaction time shortens. Risk rises.